Hello, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to record this video because I was in the mood, and I was just thinking about this as a topic that is kind of unique and that I could offer my perspective on, and that is living in a foreign country, being an expatriate living abroad. So let me just get started. In the year 2004, I moved from Seattle, where I was living, to Belize, Central America. I had been living in Seattle for 4 years and working there, and I met my son's father there, who was also from a different country. He's from Norway, and he had wanted to move out of the US and into a warm tropical climate. He wanted to move to an island. I mean, this was all kind of his dream, and when I met him, I knew that that was a possibility that this would happen, and it came about. So things fell into place. His son was old enough to be able to travel to visit us. He was turning, I think it was 12 at the time, so he could get on a plane and have like a stewardess escort him for a little extra money. But I think after age 12 you can fly internationally by yourself with an extra escort. So that happened, and Belize had just gotten high-speed internet, and it was just a country that was easy for people from other countries to move to and to buy property in. That was another reason that it appealed to him. So it was a big decision, and we were ready to start our lives together officially. We were engaged. I think I was 10 weeks pregnant when I moved there. So what we ended up having to do was sell everything that we had, pretty much down to what would fit in a 1 meter box, 1 meter square box, and 2 suitcases each, because we packed 2 suitcases of whatever we could fit, and a carry-on to take on the airplane, and then we packed a box of, I think it was like some cooking essentials and things that would have been really expensive to get there in Belize, in a foreign country, if we had to buy it there. So we sold our cars, we sold furniture, we gave away a lot of stuff, and just kind of closed down our lives in Seattle and said goodbye to the United States. So first we drove across the country to my home to see my parents, and for me, I was going to stay there for about 3 weeks, maybe 4, I don't remember, but I think it was about 3 weeks, while my ex set things up. He went there first and kind of got the apartment set up and got settled a little bit, so that I wouldn't have to go through all that stress being pregnant and everything already, although I wasn't very pregnant. I was very, very early in the pregnancy. So I stayed with my parents for about 3 weeks, and then flew there, and there I was in a foreign country. And it was really exciting, I will say. We moved there in end of November, beginning of December, so it was a beautiful time of year to be there. It was just after hurricane season would end. We lived on Ambergris Caye, which is the city San Pedro, and it's a very popular tourist destination for scuba divers and snorkelers. Belize has the second longest barrier reef in the world, second to Australia, the Great Barrier Reef. And so there's really good diving and snorkeling around Belize, and they have what's called the Blue Hole, which is really deep. I'm not sure. I didn't ever go there because I never did get certified in diving. I snorkeled a lot, but it's a very popular thing to do. Of course, every pier has tourist outings available for snorkeling and diving and that kind of thing. So tourism is the main industry in Belize. So there we were. I felt like a tourist for a little while, although there were things that were hard to adjust to, I will say. At first, we didn't have a washing machine, so I was just washing everything by hand, like outside, with the spigot on the side of the house. We had a two-bedroom apartment. It was like part of a big house that they had divided into four apartments, four two-bedroom apartments, and it was a stone building, so it was really safe from hurricanes. And we were kind of out of town, about a mile out of town, so it was very private and nice. There weren't hardly any people around. It was kind of like you're on your own little peninsula, and we had water pretty much on three sides, and then the road going into town. So it was gorgeous. There were beautiful sunsets, lots of memories of just sitting outside in the hammock and watching like lightning storms in the distance, or just sitting outside with the breeze. And there were no mosquitoes at that time because it wasn't the rainy season. Everything was fresh and new, and it was interesting and it was fun. You know, it's hard for me to remember a lot from back then, but I remember adjusting to not having a washing machine, the heat. Although I wasn't very pregnant, you know, that can also kind of make the heat worse. And I was pregnant through summer. I had my son in July, so I did have to deal with some heat, some pretty intense heat, and we didn't have air conditioning. You just kind of leave the windows open all the time, and there are these like glass slats that you just turn, and so we left them open all the time, and you sleep with the windows open. And I mean, there's screens, of course, to keep mosquitoes out, but yeah, it's just really different, and hard to explain the feeling of being in a new place. And I was young. I was 28, I believe. Yeah, 28 at the time. So, was I 27? Let me think. 2004. I'd be 27, and I was going to turn 28 the next year. So when you're young, you know, you don't really think about the future too heavily. So I think I was just living in the moment more. I'm sure there were things I complained about, but at the time, life was good, and it was just us two. And then we started to get visitors pretty soon after we moved there. So we would I wouldn't say entertain a lot, but people came from Norway, from his family, to visit, and it was fun just kind of living as a tourist. Now, the reason that we were able to move there is because my ex, we never got married, but my ex fiance could work from anywhere. He worked online, so just needed a reliable high-speed connection. So he would work just during the day from his computer, and there was a lot of flexibility with that. So as far as residency, we had to go, I believe it was every 4 weeks or maybe every 6 weeks, to the I don't remember what it's called, but to like the tourist or residence office, and get our passports stamped, and just that's what you have to do. I don't really remember what it's all called, the process, but you have to check in every 4 or 6 weeks and get your passport stamped, and they allow you to stay there. We weren't at the time working towards getting a residency. We were just kind of like on extended tourist permits. I'm sure that there's a way more official explanation of that, which I'm not remembering right now, but I do remember that, having to always go into town. It was either every month or every 6 weeks, and get our passports stamped so that we could stay there legally. But Belize is quite relaxed about that as well. So I think we lived there for a full year before my ex bought property there, because he wanted to establish some rental income, and there was a little bit of property near us that had 4 little cabanas on it, so we thought it would be good like rental income. But before that all happened, I was still pregnant and setting up the house, nesting for our Vincent, who was going to come. And he came under some unusual circumstances as well. So all through winter and spring was really nice. It was great weather. Like I said, mosquitoes weren't a problem. Hurricanes weren't a problem at that time of the year. But around the 1st of June that next year, this was like 2005, it started to rain. And it started to rain like almost every day. Mosquitoes started to move in, and it started to be a real pest. They started to be a real pest. And I realized what it's like to live in a tropical country. The heat gets really oppressive too, like around April. Sometimes the winds aren't blowing as much as you want them to be, and it's very hot and oppressive. And we just always had fans running, and I was really hot at that time because by that time I was already 7-8 months pregnant, so it was getting kind of miserable for me. But before Vincent was born, that's when the rain started and mosquitoes started and hurricane season started. And actually the weekend that Vincent was due, there was a hurricane expected to hit Belize, to hit our island, at least the area, and almost the whole island evacuated and boarded up. And I was expected to have my baby in like 2 days. So our doctors were a man who was from there, who had been raised in San Pedro and lived there his whole life, and his companion or partner, wife, and she was from Germany, and they're both doctors, practicing together, and they had birthed thousands of babies on the island, and they were going to stay. So my doctor was staying. He wasn't going to evacuate the island for the hurricane. He had been through a lot of things like this before, and he kind of felt like it wasn't going to hit us, or at least if it did, it wouldn't be too bad of a hurricane. So there was a lot of upheaval the weekend that I was due to have my son. At the time, my ex's son was visiting us, my son's half-brother, who was, by then he was 13, I think. And so he helped get everything ready. We moved all the appliances, computers, anything that could have gotten water damage to the 2nd floor, because at the time no one was in that unit above us, so we were able to use that. And we moved our used golf carts on an island. I'll just tell you that. There aren't that many cars, so we had a golf cart as our transportation and a boat. We got a boat during that time, so we put the boat in storage, with the golf cart in storage safely somewhere where it wouldn't, get torn up if there was a hurricane. Computers, everything upstairs on the 2nd floor. And it was pretty crazy. So there weren't that many people left on the island, and I could have gone into labor anytime, but our doctors were there, and that was what was important. What ended up happening was I was right on time with my due date, and it was the day that the hurricane was supposed to hit us that I was in labor. I was in labor for about 18 hours, which is normal for a first baby. I mean, it started at like 7 p.m. and then I didn't have him until 3 the next afternoon. I don't know how many hours that is, but what can I say about that? I was prepared to just have a natural birth. I knew that I wouldn't be able to get any sedatives or pain, blocks. I had read a lot of books, and I was, like I said, I was young and daring, and so I had my son. Everything went pretty well. It was a little scary, I'll say, and the doctors told me that if I had had him in the United States, they might have done a C-section, but he was perfectly healthy. I mean, he would have gotten a 10 on the APGAR scale or whatever that is. There was just a little bit of variance in the heart rate right before he was being born, and I had to lay down on my left side during labor for the most part that day because of if I got up, my blood pressure, I think it dropped, and I got really nauseous, so I just stayed laying on my left side because of blood pressure and the way your blood vessels work. If you've ever been pregnant, you know that you usually are supposed to sleep on your left side. So that was it. I had Vincent. He was perfectly healthy, 8.5-pound baby. No pain. I actually did get Pitocin to induce labor to go faster. That was interesting, having that and no pain medication. I was actually just happy to get the labor over. So it was quite an experience. And like 4 hours after I had him, I went home. So this is what happens when you're in a little clinic in a little town in a tropical island. There's little minivan taxis, so they hailed one of those for me. I was just laying with Vincent in the clinic. Everybody else was gone for a couple hours. I was by myself with him and just admiring my new baby and hoping that everything was okay with my health and with his health. And then the minivan taxi came and took us home, and we had no water because my stepson had accidentally hit the water main when he was moving the golf cart, so our water had to be turned off, so I had to go up to our neighbors and take a shower that night. So I took a shower, and that was the beginning of our new life. And I had some complications. I had a lot of troubles after I had him. They weren't real common things that you would find if you had been like in a hospital in America. I got a burn on the side of my leg from lying on the plastic. I didn't have like a sheet or a blanket, so on the side of my hip, I had been laboring for many hours and, moving a little bit, and I got like not a rug burn, but like a plastic burn. So I had that going on, and then I found out I had parasites because I was getting cramps in my stomach, lower abdomen area, and I had a parasite, which is also common in those countries. And then I got mastitis from nursing within like 5 or 6 days. So I had a fever and really painful. It's an infection in your breasts, in your milk ducts. So I had to get that treated. Other than that, it was okay. Also, about 2 days after I had Vincent, I woke up and I felt like I was dying. So we went to the doctor. They put an IV in me, and it turned out I was fine. I just needed to rest and eat more, turned out. So they gave me the IV with fluids and nutrients and said, you just need to eat a little bit more, rest when the baby's resting, don't work yourself up so much. Which I was a little bit high-strung. As a new mom, you just are so concerned about the baby's safety and well-being and health, and you just want to keep them alive, right? So it's very strenuous to your mental health and obviously to your physical health. You're recovering from a major event to your body. I mean, nothing is more major than birth. So after that, I was okay. I mean, bearing in mind all those things I needed to recover from, the rug burn on my leg, the mastitis, the parasite, and just needed to take care of myself. So I wouldn't say it was a long road to recovery, because about 2 weeks after he was born, I was up and about. I mean, I didn't do a lot because I was still like a stay-at-home mom, and I think I was cooking by then and doing a little bit of light cleaning, but I remember that I could fit in my shorts already 2 weeks later. That was probably thanks somewhat to the parasite. And just having a baby in a foreign country is a bit of an adventure. It depends on which country you're in, obviously, but our doctors were amazing. I will say this, I think it was $350 to have 2 doctors, and I had a midwife there with me the whole time. So that is something you could say good things about in that way. And they were amazing. They're really, really good at what they do. So that is kind of like that part of the situation. Now, adjusting to other things, eventually we got the washing machine, probably after, I think it was a month, I think maybe 2 months, that I had to just like wash everything in a bucket outside. And we never got a dryer, so you hung everything on the clothesline. If it was rainy, you had to just hang it up in your house if you needed to do laundry and it was rainy. Because sometimes you would have jags where it would rain for like 5 days straight and there wouldn't be, you know, a real good time to hang your laundry outside. But not a lot of luxuries and conveniences. I never had a rocking chair to rock Vincent to sleep in. I got a crib. There's a Mennonite community there that does a lot of the produce, dairy, chickens, eggs. And so they also make furniture. And so a lot of our furniture was from the Mennonites, and a lot of our food too. All the milk and fresh milk and eggs and chickens, stuff like that. Life was just interesting. We had bikes, like I said. We had, I said earlier, we had a golf cart. But at first we did just have bikes, and so my ex would, you couldn't drink the water there, you had to get purified water, so we had like a 5-gallon thing, and my ex would have to get the 5-gallon things and ride on his bike with them. And I remember that next fall that we were living there, it was still raining a lot, and this is when the water level in the ocean kind of starts to rise, and since we were so close to it, the water almost came up to our deck. It was kind of like flooded on our road and surrounding us, but our house wasn't going to get flooded. We weren't in danger of that. It was still like, you know, maybe a foot away. I don't really remember, but it was close. But I remember you can't ride your golf cart through that, obviously. You can't ride your golf cart through water. It was an electric golf cart. So he had to ride his bike with 2 5-gallon jugs of water on his shoulder, and fortunately he was a strong guy and he could do that with good balance. I would never have been able to do that. Personally, myself, I remember I rode my bike all the way up until, I don't know, probably until I was like 8 months pregnant or 7, something crazy like that. I mean, we were very hardy. And we went snorkeling almost every weekend, and I could pull myself up into the boat. Like I said, almost all the way up until the end, but towards the end, you know, I slowed down, and we would go to the gym. There was a tennis club and a little gym that we belonged to, and so we would work out frequently together and stayed in shape. So we did a good job of taking care of ourselves too. I mean, aside from the things you can't prevent, like catching parasites, which does happen. It just happens, even as careful as you can be. Yeah, we had a lot of visitors over the years we lived there. I lived there for 2 years and like 2.25 years. So what happened was things started to get difficult between the two of us, between my ex and I, after a time of being there, and some other, you know, like financial stresses and just life stresses. We had never gotten married. It didn't work out between us in the end, which is obvious because I'm married to my new husband now, which I'm very thankful for. But I still have a great relationship with my ex, and he's still a wonderful guy, and he and my son definitely have a special connection, being biologically related, and even though they don't get to see each other really hardly ever, we're working towards getting our residency, and my son's dad does have his residency and still lives there, and so does his half brother. He's taking a break now with his mom in the US, but he has been living there for about, I would say, almost 10 years, maybe 8 to 9 years. So I guess they still like it. It's not that I didn't like living there, but there was a lot missing for me. I didn't have family there. I didn't have really hardly any friends. So I needed more of a social support, more support. I felt like something was missing with my spirituality. I wanted to, join a church. Of course, most people are Catholic there. There's basically like Creole people, Hispanic people that are from Guatemala or Mexico or El Salvador. And then there's expatriates, and then there's Belizeans. So, English is the official language of Belize, but there's a lot of Spanish spoken there. I studied Spanish in college. That was my major, so I could speak Spanish. I could get along pretty well, but you don't need to because everyone speaks English too. There's a lot of cute little things about Belize that I remember. Number one, the water is just so beautiful, and it's like bathtub temperature. It's clear crystal blue. It's very primitive. There's not a lot of. It's not like Cancun where there's so much commercialism. So it's more natural in that way. If you're looking for a place more like that, it's very laid back. The main foods that you'll see, like the native, dish, would be like stewed chicken with rice and beans and plantains on the side, fried plantains, which is so delicious. I could have eaten that every day. I never learned how to make it like really well, like a real Belizean, but I did have a Belizean lady come and babysit a couple times and help me, and she taught me to make fish the way that they make it, and so I still cherish that learning experience. Let's see, what else can I say? Yeah, just the tropical ocean breeze. The people are really friendly. I don't have much bad to say about it. I mean, I'm sure you could run into crime, and there's a little bit of the drug culture, the marijuana culture, but I don't think it's anything that you would have to, really, you can avoid that easily. Another interesting thing about our life there, that my ex got a monkey once when we were visiting my family in the U.S. Someone offered like this pet monkey to him. The monkey was already a pet. This was a brown spider monkey, and she was already tame, domesticated, I guess you could say, captive. She had been a pet already, so they couldn't just put her back in the wild. So someone was offering to sell her as a pet to my ex, and he had always wanted a monkey for a pet. So we got a pet monkey. When I got back, he said he got Vincent a monkey for a pet, and Vincent was like one year old at the time, so that was interesting. I think it was more a pet for him, but we named her Ricky. He named her after a friend that we had from Argentina. It's a long story. It's kind of a joke, but it was a cute name for a girl monkey anyway. And he made her own little house outside with a rope swing, and she was interesting. She caused some troubles. She wanted to be loose more than she could be, and she bit a couple people, but that's just how monkeys are sometimes. All in all, she was a sweet monkey, and we had some special moments together when my husband or my ex would have to leave for a few days for a trip, and I had to take care of her myself and go out and feed her. So we had a monkey for a pet too. And people would like come out to our little place where we lived and just to kind of see the monkey. So it was interesting. A lot of interesting aspects to life there. I had some really good memories since I got to stay home with Vincent up until he was a year and a half old. That's about when we moved, when he was about a year and a half, a little older than that. I got to spend a lot of time with him and just watch him grow and develop one-on-one so much, and I really cherish that. I'm thankful for that. But it was an amazing experience. I would never take it back for anything. I know I was a little bit crazy to do it in the first place, and when I quit my job that I'd just gotten promoted to in Seattle, I'm sure some people were thinking, what is she thinking? But I had my mind set and my heart set to do it, and I'm like that. I'm stubborn, so I had to go through it and experience it, and I wouldn't say it was the wrong choice. I still am so grateful for the experience of being able to live in another country for a long period of time. I mean, before that I had like traveled to Mexico for a student, for a study, like a summer study. So I had already been out of the country a little bit on an extended period, more than a week. It was like 6 or 7 weeks that we were in Mexico studying, but it was a very immersive experience. But this was definitely living, day-to-day living. So if you're thinking about doing it, or if you have, thoughts, I would say, if you're curious, I would say, go visit the place where you want to live, see what other people say about it, but it's always a good experience. It makes you learn so much more about yourself and about how lucky you are to be an American or in a civilized Western country. It makes you realize how lucky you are to have family, and just, it makes you more grateful, a more humble and grateful person. And I think just learning another language, it's always just such a step outside your comfort zone, and it makes you realize, living in America, how hard it is for people that have moved here and have to adjust to our way of living and to our language. And yeah, it gives you just empathy and sympathy for people, and in a new way that you would never experience if you weren't in that situation. So those are some of the things I have learned from living in another country, and if I think of anything else, I'll add it, but generally that is already a pretty long story, and that's what happened. Thanks for watching, and I hope you subscribe and come back and join me again.